This is Comcast, a Fortune 50 organization. You are sales leaders within one of the best organizations on the planet. You have tools. What I'd like to do is give you a way to do two things. Number one, let's find some of the tools you haven't used in a while. And number two, let's blow the dust off of some of the tools that you know you have that you just haven't been applying or using appropriately lately. Okay? Who you are is not what you do. And the interesting thing is that many times when we communicate with people, especially in short bursts of time, what do we give them? Our pitch. Level 3 conversations are not about the questions you ask. Level 3 conversations are about the way you're asking your questions. Level 1 salespeople, they peddle stuff. They peddle the products. Level 3 sales teams and world-class organizational salespeople, what they do is partner in solutions. See the difference? Level 1 leaders, they ride their best people. Level 3 leaders, they create their best people. Level 1 salespeople, they hit the numbers. Level 3 salespeople, they think about the numbers and how, as you heard Ed mention right from the beginning, how those numbers are hit. Okay? Would you agree that there's a difference between level 1 and level 3 relationships and showing up here? And so the first question I'd ask you is, if we were to go down your list of direct reports, what level relationship do you have with each one of those? And how do you know? Because this is one of those instances where you're not allowed to take your opinion for it. So if you go back and you think of each one of your direct reports and you say, you know, we were here a year ago, where are we now? Are you seeing progress? And what I realized was, as they're telling me their story and the things that they've done throughout their lives and the major mile markers, one of the things that they were able to do is communicate with their customers and show up with their customers in a way that leveraged the very best of all of the experiences and the trials and tribulations that they've had in their life. And so they had an authentic baseline so that when they communicated, it wasn't lip service. It was a genuine process of development and awareness of what they've done, where they've come from, and why they do their things so well. Who knows your level 3 game? The deeper level piece. So for each one of your direct reports, do they know the deeper level you, your story, the key events that have shaped your philosophy in your life, and how you've leveraged those events to be able to help you to sell effectively? Who can tell that story? And so what I'd like to do is share a little bit about my story, give you a few key events in my world, how I've been able to leverage them to help me to sell and show up in an effective way, and then I'm going to ask you to do the exact same thing. We'll take 2 or 3 and we'll start to wind it down. So something unique about me you may not know unless you get to know me on a deeper level, and that is that I'm mixed ethnically, right? So my mom is white, my dad is black, I've never met my father, or any of the African-American half of my family. So everybody in my family, mom, aunts, uncles, brothers, cousins, you name it, is white. So bruh man's the black sheep. So you see kind of the beautiful family tree, and then it's like, there's Chris, right? And so what was funny about this, so I'm from the Philadelphia area and grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And so obviously growing up as a kid, identity was an issue. It was always difficult. Who am I? Am I white? Am I black? That whole thing. I'd try to hang out with the black guys and be like, yo, it's me, dog. And they'd be like, no, you's a white boy. And then I'd try to go and hang out with all white guys. I'm like, dude. They're like, yeah, but you're black. So I got caught in the middle, didn't know if I was white or black. Now, that was a struggle and a challenge in my world. The benefit of that struggle and challenge, and what I learned from that experience, was how to communicate across cultures. So I can sit in a room like this today with some of the best, sharpest salespeople in the world and feel completely comfortable, and tomorrow you can find me in a prison in Philadelphia or somewhere teaching goal-setting seminars. Now, fast forward in my world, growing up, got into a lot of trouble in high school, drugs, alcohol. I'll minimize the rest of that story because this is being recorded. But I got into some trouble and never finished high school and dropped out and tried going back, and they're like, yeah, we're going to invite you not to come back. Now, what I learned from that high school experience was what it felt like to hit, quote, rock bottom, and what it felt like just to underperform. I felt shame. Fast forward, what did I do? Join the military. So actually I was afforded with an opportunity to kind of a go to war or go to jail option. Funny thing is, I went to go join the Air Force, and because I had a GED, they're like, yeah, but no. So tell you who would love you, though, those two doors. Yeah. And what did I see? I saw the Army and the Marine Corps. So the very next door that I saw was the Army office. Went in there, I'm like, dudes, I got a GED. Will you take me? They're like, yeah. Get on the bus, man. So sure enough, I'm in the Army. I'm deployed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, jumping out of airplanes and helicopters. Went overseas to Mannheim, Germany. Got deployed. This was back in 95, 96, 97 when the Bosnian thing was going on, if you remember that. Lived in the Balkans, so Bosnia, Croatia, Hungary, Tuzla, and so on. What I learned from my Army experience was really how to apply the raw grit and to shut up and just charge the hill. What was cool about the Army was they're not asking for your opinion there. They're like, you, right here, they put a little X, and they're like, hill, a little X, and they draw a line, and they're like, go. So it was very basic. It was shut up, do what you're told. But the value of that was I learned how to not complain, shut up, eat it, and just make things happen, right? I also realized I don't want to be here anymore. So I got out of the Army, went to Penn State. Where's my Penn Staters? Penn State, sweet. Business? Oh, okay, cool. Where'd you go? To the main campus or? Awesome. So I was a business and psychology and went to the main campus for a semester and then went down to the Philadelphia branch in Abington or Ogontz campus. I got a bachelor's in psychology, business. Halfway through my Penn State experience, actually ran out of college cash. So the Army gave me the GI Bill, but because I had a GED, I only got like that much money. So Penn State was more than that much money. So the Air Force now comes to get me. So I went enlisted guy Army to commissioned officer Air Force, F-16 fighter wing, Salt Lake City, Utah for 4 years. Got a master's in HR management and development, started motivational speaking and going into the prisons at that point and realized this is really where I want to be. Now, what I learned when I was in the Air Force was, number one, the realities of politics and red tape and how to navigate that. Number two, how to navigate the labyrinth of different systems that were out there. And I'm willing to bet that here at Comcast, you probably have a similar labyrinth, don't you? In the Air Force, that fact was a way of life. And what I learned was to stop asking for more budget, and to force myself to go find the resources. Just like all of you said, somebody in here has a solution for a business challenge that you need. And so the value of my Air Force experience with minimal budget was there was never enough money, but there were always enough resources. Fast forward, got out of the Air Force. I said, this has been great. Started a business in, where are we here? San Diego. Have been there for 7 years now. What I learned about being a business owner was the realities of economics, right? Stuff costs, and the realities of cash flow. So when I was in the Air Force, I didn't have to worry about budgets and so on as much. Outside of the Air Force, now all of a sudden this stuff costs money and I got to chop out my own taxes and send it to the tax man, and it gets difficult. In fact, you give me a check, I'm going to cash it. Now, 2 key pieces of my story changed the game for me. Number one, and then I'm going to check in with all of you. Number one, I got a contract with Monster.com. How many of you have heard Monster? All right, cool. So Monster actually has a program called Making It Count. And what that program does is it hires professional speakers to come in, memorize a motivational speech, and then go out to high schools and colleges all across the country and do little assembly kinds of things. So for 3 years, and these are all free for the schools. So for 3 years, I was with Monster speaking at every state in the US. I've got 2 left. One is Oklahoma, and the other is Alaska. So those 2 are still on my bucket list. And what I learned from the Monster experience was how to stay motivated, how to keep my energy up here when the group was going down. Because the high school kids and the junior high kids can be one of 2 things, either the best audiences in the world or the worst. And what was very difficult, the skill that I had to develop, was how to not let where they were going impact where I was going. And the other contract that really changed the game for me, and then we're going to check in with all of you, was I got a contract with an organization called the David Allen Company. David Allen wrote a book called Getting Things Done, or GTD, New York Times best-selling author, and his stuff's all about personal productivity and emails and that sort of stuff. And two things that I learned from that experience. Number one, how to be very efficient myself, black belt efficiency. And then number two, what it felt like to deliver a world-class seminar, basically. So as I'm moving off, I know when I'm rocking and when I'm not, because their stuff was awesome and I had the luxury to feel that and experience that. Now, I'm sharing this story with you, not to brag, but to check in with all of you, because when I wrote this book, The Roadmap to Freedom, it was for the business, the people that you all network with, right? So the small to mid-sized leadership community who is responsible for inspiring a culture of accountability, doing exactly what you're talking about here. And what I realized was I had to leverage every single piece of my story. I needed to be able to communicate effectively. I needed to know that this thing has to happen or else I'm going to feel shame. I needed to pull out the raw grit, figure out the books and the processes on how to get it published, understand the realities of selling it, and actually put money away when it happened. And even when that happens, I'm still not reaching tons of customers, and the ones that I reach may or may not be excited. And I need to know that my seminars are rocking it or not, and be honest about when I just don't have good days. Now, I want to kick this exact same concept to you. If we had your story up here on this screen with the 5 or 6 key events that you'd experienced in your life and what you learned from those key events and how they help you to sell and how they help you to lead, what 5 or 6 key events would we see up here for you? As you're finishing that up, I just want to add a 6th question here. Given what you know about the current state of the business, and where you're headed, and I know you're here to talk about some of the products and the services and some of the cool things that you have coming down the pike. Based on what you know now about the current status of the business and where you think you're headed in the next year or so, circle the single skill that you think is most necessary to help drive the business into the future of awesome. So as you start to think about, a little bit further, 2014, which one of those skills, all of them are going to be necessary, but which one do you think is going to be most important as you continue to motivate your team to really get to that next level? Can your team tell us your story? Can you tell us your team's story, each individual on your team? Can both you and your team tell us your customer's story? When you're engaging with your customers and you're walking through a mental checklist to push the product and pedal, we're not listening for the cues and watching for the cues of your customer's story. And I want to highlight and be very sensitive to the fact that I recognize you all are busy. You've got a lot going on, and guess what? I've seen some of the cool stuff coming down the pike. So guess what you're going to get in 2014? Busier. And one of the challenges to really having authentic dialogue with people is this idea of, I don't have time to dig into level 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I would like to flip that concept on its head and suggest that one of the reasons that we're so busy is because we're not having that level of deep dialogue so that we can get the truth when we need it to help us to make the appropriate business decisions moving forward. And so my challenge for all of you as you're moving through the next couple days here is, as you're hearing about the new product rollout and the strategy and the cool things that Showtime's doing, you've been going over the legal jargon of some of the contracts. That's going to be great. So who's it legal? Let me hear my legal guy. So I saw that on the agenda. I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, I wish I could be there. But I got to go, man. The fact that might be one of those moments where you're willing to just kind of check back into that level 1 place, laptops open, in your emails, giving everybody the head nod, but you're not here. So for the next couple days, my challenge for you is to bring level 3 focus into these next couple days. Learn the story, not the elevator pitch, the real story of some of the people in this room, and be curious about the relationships that you have with your team. Selling can happen easier if you do 3 simple things. Number 1, communicate authentically from your level 3 self. Number 2, reconnect with and leverage those unique life experiences that both you and your team have had. And number 3, teach you and your team to begin to uncover and communicate from and be sensitive to your customer's story as well. Do those 3 things, you'll do what you do easier moving forward. I want to thank all you guys for sticking with me here.